This song did not begin as one grand psychedelic vision. John Lennon had 3 unfinished ideas lying around and decided they might belong together. One followed the rise and fall of a 2-note police siren he heard near his home in Weybridge. Another involved sitting on a cornflake and waiting for a man, until Beatles biographer Hunter Davies misheard man as van, and Lennon preferred the mistake. The third grew from Lennon repeating a phrase about sitting in an English garden until a melody appeared. Rather than finish any one of them properly, he stitched all 3 into the same song. The final push came from Stephen Bailey, a student at Lennon's old school, Quarry Bank. Bailey wrote asking Lennon to explain possible hidden meanings in Sgt. Pepper, including whether Billy Shears was connected to one of the school's teachers. Lennon disliked the idea that every strange lyric needed a scholarly explanation, so he turned the new song into a trap for anyone determined to decode it. It was not based on one real event or a fictional plot. It was just a deliberate pileup of images, wordplay, and private jokes. Lennon later said the opening lines came during separate LSD trips, while the walrus itself came from Lewis Carroll's The Walrus and the Carpenter. He only realized later that he had identified himself with the poem's villain. The recording for I Am the Walrus began at EMI Studios on September 5, 1967, only 9 days after the death of Beatles manager Brian Epstein. Take 16 became the basic track, with Lennon playing electric piano while the band built an unusually heavy, lurching rhythm around it. George Martin then wrote an arrangement for violins, cellos, horns, and contrabass clarinet. On September 27th, the 16-member Mike Sam's singers were brought in, but instead of giving them normal background harmonies, Lennon and Martin had the professional vocal group produce laughter, swooping noises, rhythmic nonsense, and other sounds that made the record feel like a sinister children's show coming apart at the seams. The strangest part was added during mono mixing on September 29th. A radio was fed directly into the recording while its dial was moved around, and the signal landed on a BBC Third program broadcast of Shakespeare's King Lear. Pieces of Act 4, Scene 6, featuring Gloucester, Edgar, and Oswald, were mixed into the song's fading chaos. The play had not been chosen ahead of time, it was the broadcast they happened to catch. Paul McCartney later explained that the random radio idea had been influenced by experimental composer John Cage, whose radio music instructed performers to move unpredictably through radio frequencies. One of the Beatles' most carefully constructed recordings therefore ends with something left largely to chance. John wanted I Am the Walrus to follow All You Need Is Love as the Beatles' next major single, but Paul and George Martin considered Hello Goodbye the safer choice. So Walrus was placed on the B-side, and it was also included on the Magical Mystery Tour soundtrack. In December 1967, the Hello Goodbye single and the Magical Mystery Tour EP occupied the top 2 positions on the British singles chart, meaning I Am the Walrus was technically sitting at numbers 1 and 2 at the same time. Lennon had designed the song to make interpretation pointless, but the joke backfired beautifully. He created one of the most analyzed recordings the Beatles ever made.